Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today and fresh back from the NRA annual meetings, Amanda Suffecool from Eye on the Target Radio and Women for Gun Rights, which is live the same place you see this. Women for Gun Rights airs on Friday evenings. Amanda, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Paul. As always, I'm always appreciative that you value my opinion, if you will.
Absolutely. Let's get started with what I want to start with is we were both down in Houston for the NRA annual meetings, and it was well. Let me start as I should. I should start every show this way. If you want to get your comment in, we'll discuss your comments. Comment on either the Facebook or YouTube live video, or if you have Twitter, you can tweet with the hashtag Bullet Podcast. That's actually the most reliable and quickest way to get a comment to us, and we'll get that up on the air, and we'll discuss your comments on the air. And I got to make sure Facebook is posting. Yes. So, just get your comments in. We'll discuss those on the air. Amanda, I want to start with kind of a wrap-up. We touched on this yesterday, but didn't go deep into the NRA annual meetings. But both you and I were there. Charlie Cook was there. And we saw many of our friends there. However, it wasn't the most attended NRA annual meetings I've ever seen.
Well, it was smaller, and people are like, oh, well, people were scared off because of the event that had happened in the school in Texas. And I'm to a point maybe, but when you looked at the show, there weren't empty booths, there weren't empty seats. So if somebody was, it was sparse. The things that I saw was that it was just lower attendance and lower planned vendors, lower planned events, smaller planned events. So I think that it had hurt them in a couple ways, and one of them being that it was a holiday weekend. And so the shifting of the show from April of 2021 until September of 2021, and then back to May of 2022 in the same location, and then hitting a holiday weekend. I just think that they put the show on, but it was just a planned, much smaller show.
Well, and I think what hurt them most was the holiday weekend. A lot of people had plans with their families over that weekend, and the families took precedence over the NRA show.
Well, and when you talk to vendors, I mean, vendors have a really hard time saying it's already hard. You lose the lottery when you're picked to go to work a trade show because you don't get a break. It's not like you're going to work. You are hustling to get there. You are working the whole time you're there because they don't want to pick up extra people. So you work, you really work, and then you go home. So telling people that they had to work that hard over a holiday weekend, and oh, by the way, you don't get to see your family, you don't get to travel, you don't get whatever vacations or whatever were planned. You know, some companies were like, there's not a return on this that justifies this to the employees, and so they just opted out.
Well, and lest people thinking that it's just the NRA that had low attendance, we had SHOT Show back in January. That was not the heaviest attended event either. So it was. This could very well just be that people aren't used to being out in public again.
There are some people who aren't willing to yet be out in public, and then when the news is going, oh well, there's another uprising of COVID here, or another little batch sprung up there, you know, some people are like, yeah, I've got somebody at one or the other of the age spectrum that I don't want to risk it. So whether it's a parent or whether it's a child or somewhere, you know, someone in the vulnerable categories.
Yeah, absolutely. That we should still mention that I mean, it made national news, and I witnessed it for myself. There were protesters there on Friday. There were a few that hung out for Saturday, but
Right.
I honestly think that the what drew the protesters were the cameras for CNN, the cameras for CBS, NBC, the big network cameras were there. That's what, in my opinion, drew the protesters. Cameras for the big boys went away, so did the protesters.
Protesters. Yeah, so with Donald Trump coming into town, all of the big networks were there. And it was kind of funny because then I was in the media room just after they escorted somebody out who did not have a media pass, had not applied for one by the deadline, was there absolutely demanding that they be allowed on the show floor, allowed in, and they're like, we have a set of policies, we have a set of rules, we vet the media, and you're not on the list, you did not get approval, and we're not letting you in. I mean, we see that in a lot of the shows where they close media a couple weeks before the event, and this was one of those. And so I think that was, well, we'll just say that it had Beast in their name. They had not applied, and so they weren't let in. They weren't pretty about it.
Yeah, our mutual friend Kat Ainsworth, my understanding, was there when that happened, and there was, I guess, a big kerfuffle. Would be the best.
That would be a way to do it. All I hear was that somebody said we need the police, and there was a big. This is an interesting piece to everybody. There was a big police and security presence at NRA the entire weekend. So I believe that the NRA hired Apex Security, and you saw security people at all the entrances, at all these major transfer places. But then you saw police embedded inside, and you saw police on the street. And so they were monitoring, and I think that was Houston that supplied those pieces to it.
It wasn't just Houston PD. There was state police. There was I saw a friggin' Texas Ranger there. I mean, there was all of the levels of police at the NRA annual meetings, and I'm very grateful there were, especially on Friday when the crowd was getting very, very vocal on the other side of the street. I ran into Cam Edwards, and we were discussing it early on Friday before it got really, really loud. And I will say this, I'm grateful that there was such a whoops, and I believe we just lost Amanda. We'll see if Amanda comes back here. I'm going to kind of watch that feed, see if she comes back. She was saying there's storms there, and maybe the power got knocked out, and she may be back. She may not. We'll kind of wait for a little bit here and see. While we're waiting for her, I want to talk a little bit, continue on about the police presence. And for those of you that follow me on Facebook, I posted a lot of pictures of the protesters, and because at that time I was wondering if they were going to be more than vocal. They never did get more than vocal, but the police were heavily present outside the building, including what I was impressed with was gorgeous horses. They had mounted police there, and a lot of them, and I thought that was a very, very nice touch for the Houston PD to put those mounted police out there. So I did really, really like that. I got some good pictures of the mounted unit. They were stationary and right in front of where the protesters' main congregation was, and at the minimum they had 4 or 5 mounted units and probably 30, 40 freestanding police that were lined in front, so that there's going to be no charge across the street of protesters. one thing I want to talk about while we wait for Amanda to come back, if she's able to. She said there's storms in her area. I did write a piece for the Gun Mag today, and what happened on the Friday of NRA annual meeting. I'll try to back up. Let me actually go pull a mini calendar up here. Oh, here she comes. There she's back. And let's go ahead and swing this back over here. Welcome back. Had a lightning strike, or?
Yeah, I told you there was a big storm, and now you guys get my dog because he is so freaked out that I cannot lock him. I cannot put him out of the studio. He is there's no way. So yeah, so Ohio is getting hit by a major rain and something storm, but yeah.
Okay. Well, what I was starting to go into, Amanda, I wrote a piece for that hit on the Gun Mag today. That last week, it was on Friday of last week, that the judge in Washington State came down and said that ACLDN is insurance and cannot be sold in the state of Washington. And I wrote a piece on the Gun Mag today, partially explaining why Marty Hayes and the attorney for ACLDN do not believe that it is insurance, simply because it's a membership program, and you do not, through your membership, you're not guaranteed they're going to represent you. They will look at your case, and as long as they believe you had a good shoot, as long as they believe you acted properly, they're going to cover your defense. But if they think you just went out and did something totally inappropriate, there's no coverage there. And so that they don't think it's insurance.
I saw the article. The interesting piece is trying to define what is and isn't coverable in all different states. We saw this with them. We saw this with Lockton. We saw this with a variety of states. And frankly, part of it is their anti-gun agenda, because then they make it so people are not insured. So people then say, I'm not sure I want to carry concealed. And I mean, really, there is a group that calls it murder insurance.
Yes.
And so you can pretty much tell that they're not complementary to the whole fact.
And she froze again. Yeah, they will say, one of the things you hear a lot is they're pushing for, well, if you want a gun, you need to have insurance, and then they deny the type of insurance that will actually help gun owners. And so they want to shut down, and her camera disappeared, so I'm going to come back here. So they deny places like ACLDN, places like USCCA, to sell insurance. And so it's a two-edged sword. You have to have insurance if you want to own a firearm, and then, oh, by the way, we're going to shut everybody down who could sell a plan that would actually help you. And so there you go. It's we're not infringing on you. We can't say you can't do it. We're just saying there are conditions, and then we're going to make it impossible for you to meet those conditions. Is the way around infringing on your Second Amendment rights. And we're going to wait for a few more minutes here for Amanda to come back. I guess there are some pretty strong storms apparently. So I'm going to get this comment up here real quick. And I gotta find where this is. Give me just a second. I normally have just push buttons for these, but I didn't program a push button for just me. So I think we're just gonna go ahead and do it with a nope. There we go. George says, when do we get to vote for Amanda for NRA leadership? That's a great question. And if she's able to make it back, we'll absolutely ask her about that. But I want to get this one up here. Gerald says ACLDN is not insurance. Any member knows that. Another court will hopefully be fair. That's a great point, Gerald. And in my story I posted today, I mentioned the fact that ACLDN does plan to appeal. They actually stated that they're going to appeal. They have until the 24th of June to file an appeal. They plan to appeal well ahead of that deadline. They plan to have it the appeal filed well before then. Their options are they can just stop selling memberships in Washington State. That's not a great option. They can become an insurance company, and then in order to do that, what they would have to do is they would have to put in a part of the policy would be that if you do lose your case, if, for example, if you plead to a lesser charge or anything like that, then you have to pay back the money that ACLDN provides, which is a bad option for ACLDN to start with, because they look at each individual case and they don't proceed if they don't believe you were in the right to start with. So, and I agree. I hope, Gerald, that they are fair. This was just a regular Washington district judge. It now goes to the Washington State Court of Appeals. And then, should that fail, there is the Washington State Supreme Court they can go to. And I think if Amanda doesn't come back here fairly soon, we're going to go ahead and cut this one short. But one more thing I do want to discuss, and that is this. Opening this up with a little bit of a personal story. While we were at the NRA annual meetings, Susan went to the Women's Leadership Forum session. Part of that Women's Leadership Forum is an auction. And she won an auction for a car CM9. And she knows that that's a gun. I actually had a friend, Miguel Gonzalez of the Gun Free Zone blog. He and I met up when we were on our way down to Atlanta. We met up just south of Nashville, and he allowed me to shoot his car CW9 that had a Crimson Trace laser attached to the grip. Now, I fired that gun as well after my stroke as I fired my Glock before I had my stroke. It was an epiphany for me. I did that much better with that gun and a Crimson Trace laser. So I put it immediately on my wish list. I tried to buy Miggy's from him. He wouldn't sell, but I tried immediately to buy his from him. He wouldn't sell it, so I put it on my wish list. I told Susan, I told Amanda about it, and then she goes down to this women's forum, and there's a C. The one I fired was a CW9. There's a CM9 up for auction, and she bids on it, and she wins it. And so we're coming back up. The gun shop that she wins it on Saturday, on Friday, excuse me. We're on our way back up, and we're calling around the gun shops up here. And one thing we find is that it is becoming a little more rare for gun shops to do the internet sale or out of state transfers. It is it's something that, I mean, let's face it, with the Biden administration pushing to eliminate FFLs with any minor little error in paperwork, they'll pull your FFL. So the gun shops want to do paperwork just for their gun sales. So if they don't profit from it, they're not going to do it, is what we're finding. So, and I'm getting my phone going nuts on me over here. I think that's Amanda telling me. Nope, that was... All right. So anyway, that's kind of what we're finding is it's becoming a little more rare for your regular gun store to do a transfer from an internet sale, even with a fee. So, all right. Well, it's been several minutes now. I don't think Amanda's going to be able to make it back, because if she were going to be able to, I think she'd have popped in by now. So I don't see any more comments about. I don't see any more comments coming up. I will. I promise, George. When next time we get Amanda on, which is scheduled to be 2 weeks from today, I'll try to remember. And if I don't, George, you're commenting all the time. Ask that question again when Amanda is on 2 weeks from today, and we'll ask her. I do want to get this one up. George just sent in, and he says, "Gun grabbers are attacking from every which way." Yes, they are. Now, I don't want you to think that this is not panic time. In order for a gun law to go through, it has to pass the House, which right now is going to be fairly easy. Then it's got to get through the Senate. And unless the Senate rules change, which I suppose could happen, but right now to pass a law, you still need 60 votes in the Senate, which means they need every Democrat, every single one, and 10 Republicans. They may get one, they may get two. They're not getting 10. And if when something comes up in the Senate, believe you me, I'm going to be telling you about it. Cam Edwards over at Bearing Arms will be telling you about it. Anybody in the Second Amendment media who you read or tune into on a regular basis will be telling you about these bills and how and when to get in touch with your senators. We will make sure that these senators know if they vote for these things that this will be the end of their Senate career. I would also strongly encourage you to keep track of your individual House member and let them know that if they're a Republican, look, you ran on gun rights before. I expect you to stay there. If you don't stay with gun rights, I'll be looking somewhere else this November, because every House member is reelected every November. It doesn't mean that if they're a Republican, they vote against gun rights, that you have to go and vote for a Democrat. You don't. There are independents you can vote. And there are independents and libertarians running in almost every district that you can vote for. If you don't want to vote for a Democrat and your Republican House member has voted for gun control, you can protest vote another way. Get this one up here real quick. There we go. And Pete over at Gun Websites, can you chat a bit about the AMCON and Gun Rights Policy Conference this year? Absolutely, I can do that, Pete. AMCON is coming up the 30th of September, and that is Friday. And what it is, it's a full day of basically Second Amendment media teaching ourselves. We'll find people that are really good at, for example, data tracking, or really good at marketing, or really good at this, that, or the other thing. We'll invite them to come and teach us how to do what they do. And it's kind of a best practices thing. In other words, what we do is we're trying to get everybody better at Second Amendment media. We're trying to lift all the boats by making everybody as good as they can be at everything around the media. That happens on September 30th in Dallas, Texas. And then the next, and then that's from like 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. About 2 hours later, GRPC starts. For those of you who may not know what GRPC is, GRPC, Gun Rights Policy Conference, is put on by the SAF, and that is a once-a-year show. The last 2 years have been online only. And you can go to SAF's YouTube channel and watch them for the last 2 years if you like. But it is where they do some kind of the same thing. People who are making a difference in Second Amendment rights get up and talk about what they're doing. The people, everyone from like if Calguns has a victory, they'll have people up there talking about what they did for that victory. And they'll have individual attorneys, and they'll have, I've heard all kinds of amazing people speak at GRPC. And what's even better is when you attend a GRPC, you get to, when they're not on stage, you can walk up and talk to them, these people yourselves. I've had conversations with Alan Gura when he's been at GRPC. That's where I met Tom Gresham. That's where I met a lot of the really big names in gun rights, was attending GRPC. Let me get a couple, because we've got a couple more as I was doing my diatribe there. We've got some more comments coming in. Big John 410 says state capitals will also get active for gun grabbers too. Yeah, don't just pay attention to Washington, D.C. If you're able, the good news is right now most states are done with their legislature for the year. Most states. There are a few that have states that have legislatures that run 12 months a year. If you ask me, that's a huge waste. State government should be able to get done what they need to get done in a few months. Almost all the states do that. The vast majority do. There are a few that have a 12-month schedule, and we still got to be careful there. But most states have put their legislatures to bed for the year. But yeah, if your legislature is still meeting, yes, absolutely. And then going back to Pete, gun websites, in my opinion, the attacks from every direction are an indication of their awareness. This is the end of their ability to exploit the ignorance of the disinterested voter as they have historically. Pete, I want to expand on that a little bit too. And I think this is becoming an act of desperation for them. They see that coming down the pipe, and it's going to happen this month, that the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision, it is coming this month. I don't know exactly when. They never, they don't telegraph that. It's just that it gets released when it gets released, but it's coming. And I think that as the closer we get to that, the more we see that it is going to be, that the more they see it's going to be the end of may issue, that all states will have to go shall issue. They're going to lose big, and they want to push now while there's still an appearance that they can win. So, and Gerald says, this is a good point. Every vote to a third party reduces the chance a Republican win. One way to get rid of them is the primary. You're right, Gerald. Unfortunately, for example, in South Dakota where I live, the primary is this coming Tuesday. And so the chance to primary if I had a Republican running that wasn't pro-gun, the chance to primary him is almost gone. So you're right that the better way to get a pro-gun person in is to primary the anti-gun person. Get them out, replace them with a pro-gun person. That's absolutely correct. It's all a timing issue. You've got to be able to get that person on the ballot, and most primaries are already done. There's a few, like my home state of South Dakota, that happen next week, and a few that even still now are later in the year. They run as late as July, but you kind of have to get in advance and get up in ahead of these things. So, well, I think that is going to do it. For mostly solo, I've used up 30 minutes. So I think what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and shut this one down. I want to encourage you all, continue to watch 5 p.m. Central Time every day this week. Tomorrow, Mike Piwowarski will be here. I'm working on a lineup for this Saturday. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for your comments. It helped me continue on while Amanda was unable to come in. But thanks again, everybody, and we